It's the Jim Fannin Show. We've come to take your mind.
Am I still on? Corey Favell is in the house. I'm going to get to know him with you. Buckle in, strap it in, lock it in. Welcome aboard. Oh, my brother. Thanks for taking... Oh, wait. Well, the producer's got to make sure the next song doesn't come on. Oh, he missed it. I had to press cancel first. Such a sloppy producer. That's M Factor coming on there. Corey, thanks for your time, man. It's been a while putting it together, but I appreciate you having you on. What's going on? How you feeling?
Feeling good. 2 years later, still feel great. Yeah.
2 years later, I mean, everything's in reference to the pandemic now, right? Like we have to, everything, how are you doing? It's all in relation to the lockdown and this quote pandemic. So at first, before we get into all that, I don't have a script. I don't know. You've never been on the show before, but if you saw me with Josh Bigger, it's pretty clear. Well, there's no script. There's no planned questions, anything like that. You can call it lack of preparation or just winging it. I don't know. But just for the people that don't know who you are, tell us everything about like where you came from, who your parents are, how you grew up, how you got to the place where you are now, and then we'll get into the rest of it later.
All right. It's not the most exciting story, but so I'm originally from St. Catharines. My dad, Doug Favell, was a professional hockey player born in St. Catharines. When I was born in 1972, my dad was playing with the Philadelphia Flyers. So in September, October, when the season started, I spent my first year in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, is where we lived. And so that was 72, 73. And then in 73, 74, my dad was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we moved from New Jersey, Cherry Hill. We moved into Lorne Park in Mississauga and spent 3 years there. I did preschool and some kindergarten there. And then my dad was picked up in the expansion draft by the Colorado Rockies. So in, I think, 76, we moved out to Colorado. So, but every summer, because I was from St. Catharines, so even though we were living in Colorado, every summer I came back to St. Catharines. So every time the season was over and school ended, we'd hop in the van, the truck, whatever, fly back, but we'd come back for the summer. I always played summer sports in St. Catharines. So even though I did live, I kind of grew up in the US and in Colorado, I always in the summertime came back to St. Catharines. So I have a lot of roots to St. Catharines. My grandfather, Doug Favell Sr., was very involved in lacrosse and minor hockey. He started up the St. Catharines Falcons, won a Minto Cup with the A's. My dad, same thing, was very involved with minor hockey and, gave a lot back to the city, golf tournaments and charity events and stuff like that. So eventually, I think around grade 6, we finally, after my dad retired, he stayed out in Colorado. He coached at the Denver University. I played my minor hockey at Denver University. I was a junior pioneer. And then we moved back to Jordan. And my sister started high school at Dennis Morris. I went to Dennis Morris. And kind of came back to our roots and, set up shop in Jordan. And that's where I continued to grow up. And So yeah, that's kind of my story. I traveled around a little bit growing up. My dad was a professional hockey player. I wasn't. I love sports. I thought maybe I was going to be a professional hockey player, but I'm not the biggest guy in the world, and it was a tough game back then in the 80s and 90s. So I do a lot of strength training now because I try to give back to the kids and try to help them find a path to extend their hockey careers, or not necessarily hockey, just building a path for kids that, hockey doesn't have to end at 19. Baseball doesn't have to end at 20. You can find a path where you can keep playing a sport you love for a long period of time if you follow that right path. So that's kind of what I do now. I'm involved in strength training. I have a technology that's pretty game changing with athletes and with physio. I work a bit with the NHL alumni. I have some NHL alumni that guys retiring right out of the pro sports are always in great shape. They're not looking to get back in shape, but I found, guys are, they hit their 70s and they realize they can't hit the golf ball as far as they used to. They start to realize, hey, maybe I could do a little strength training, and the equipment I use is perfect for that. So I kind of set up a deal with the NHL alumni. I work with, alumni guys for no charge, kind of help them out. And so that's where I kind of set up my business in St. Catharines. And I was about a year before the pandemic hit. I opened up Favell Fitness and started my business here in St. Catharines. Little history on that. I worked at TRW for 10 to 11 years. So kind of did some factory work. I was in retail. I worked for West 49 for 10 years, kind of in the brick and mortar section of West 49. And about 5 years ago, that's when I got into the technology that I use and helping clients, athletes, patients strength train and basically strive for optimal health. So anyway, I bought into this technology, and a friend of mine, Brad Anderson, was running Energy Fitness with AJ Netsopoulos, the Netsopoulos family. They really believed in my technology and my program, and they believed in my business. So they kind of gave me my first shot opening up and starting Favell Fitness. So Brad was great. He saw my dream. He said, open up a lab inside Energy Fitness and do your thing. So that was amazing. They set me up. Everything was going really good. I was helping athletes get to the OHL, the USPHL, just helping guys, achieve that optimal health and helping athletes. And so it was around December. And I have my history. I have 5 kids. I'm 49 years old. My kids are 24, 22.
5 kids,
21.
dude.
Yeah. So,
holy cow.
So I've raised some kids. I've been raising kids for a long time. I love kids. So anyway, my son's 22 now. I started working with him when he was about 12, 13. And he realized, a little bit of strength training. He, was a single A player to a double A. And, when he turned 18, he realized, wow, how much better his game was just by getting stronger and working out. So, so flashback to start the business up. And in December, that's when my 2 young ones got sick. They were sick for about a week, sick through Christmas. I kind of got sick through February. And that's when I got better, came back to work in March. And that's when the doors were closed on everything. I came into work and Brad was like, hey, public health was here. We got to shut her down for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks led into today. So we're here 2 years later. And
Wow.
Anyway, it was a crazy journey. I just found, the mandates were really something that was kind of hard to get around to try and keep people healthy. The very beginning, we were learning a lot about the virus, and nobody knew which way to go, right? Everyone was kind of on the fence, and oh my gosh. So with that, I was shut down for about 2-3 months. Like I said, my son was living here. We just get up every day. We'd shoot pucks in the driveway. We'd try to find somewhere to go where they wouldn't bother us. They were sending kids home that were shooting pucks over behind West Park School. The city actually took the nets away. Then they started like I said, I have 5 kids. My 2 young ones, I couldn't take them to the park. They started roping off the park. So I was like, okay. I followed all the rules. I didn't want to be the shit disturber. So we hunkered down and we did our thing. I found it a bit odd because we were all sick right before they locked my business down. So in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, well, geez, this sounds like what my family just went through.
We just had, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, 2 weeks. We'll hold out the 2 weeks. I have a lot of money invested, inside, the fitness club. And so I thought I'd wait it out. Well, then, then the government started handing out incentives to businesses. So then I realized, okay, they're handing out some pretty good money to sit at home. Then I started realizing all the healthy people that were at home that I was working with were starting to go kind of downhill. They were losing muscle mass. They were, them being locked down was not the optimal thing for the clients that I was working with. And as I started to see that, I thought, geez, like, I tried, I went and I talked to AJ and Brad, and I mean, they gave me the opportunity of a lifetime, but I had to make some decisions where I was gonna put my machine and take my machine and try to continue to work with all these mandates. Being American, I found out right away that a lot of the mandates weren't being pushed so hard in certain states. So I started thinking about the kids. Now we're 6 months in. I'm starting to think about the kids who can't play hockey, and man, what's going to go on if these kids are sitting at home, and I have kids and I'm watching it, right? They're in their rooms, they're on their computers, they're not doing any physical activity. I found I had some young girls, hockey players, and some basketball players I was working with around 13, 14. They were affected the most, just being locked down in the rooms. And I just felt I was handcuffed. I couldn't do anything with these kids because of the mandates, right? So I started looking to the US and thought, maybe I can help some of these kids continue their careers in the US where kids are continuing to play hockey. So a friend of mine, Chris Lukey, his son Dawson, played local here, and really good player, has a great opportunity, but he needed to keep playing. So his dad made a decision. We're going to the States. You got to make some sacrifices. You want to keep playing hockey. I mean, he literally handed his suitcase to his son through the gate at the bridge, said, go get him, kid. And Dawson went down to a private school in Cleveland, Ohio, Gilmore Academy, and he lit it up. He was the top 3 in scoring at one point in North America because Canadian kids just weren't playing hockey. So a friend of mine, Bruce Boudreau, had just purchased a new team in Hershey in the USPHL. Bruce was coaching with the Minnesota Wild and was kind of just on semi-retirement, waiting to kind of find another team to pick him up in the NHL. But in the meantime, he had the Hershey Cubs. So I messaged him and said, listen, I have some kids who really need to continue to play hockey. I can't see them locked down. Could you sign any Canadian players? And Bruce said, I'll sign any Canadian players. I said, great. As long as we can play, we're coming down. So I grabbed a couple kids. I loaded up my machine and I went to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and did a strength test combine with the Hershey Cubs, a new team. The 2 players I brought down, Bruce really loved them. So he signed those 2 Canadian kids so they could continue to play hockey. So the issue for me was it was great that I was getting down to the States, but every time I entered back into Canada, it was an issue. So when I'd go to the States, I'm an American citizen, I'd pull up to the border, and the guy was reading a book, and he looks at me and says, hey, we're closed. Border's closed. I said, hey, I'm American. He looks at me and goes, oh, all right. Like he had something to do now. So he's like, okay, where are you headed? I said, well, I'm heading down to New Jersey. Okay. And he asked, are you actually coming back?
Now. It's been so long since anybody has approached the border. He's like, oh, okay.
It was pretty funny. So yeah, then, but coming back, it was like hazmat suits and whoa, hold it, and I played by the rules. I had, the first time I entered, with Jonathan Graves. We went down, tried out in Hershey, and he made the team. We were all excited, and we hit the border coming back late on the Sunday night, and we didn't have PCR tests. They had expired, but being in the States, you had to book it through Walgreens. I'd phoned the border, talked to them, and they said, listen, it's not a big deal. Just show up at the border. They might give you a ticket. So long story short, we show up at the border. We're in a U-Haul, and they asked for our PCR tests. We didn't have PCR tests. So right away we get pulled in. So immigration or Canada Customs, they kind of, not that they don't see eye to eye with public health, but there was a little bit of a disconnect. So Customs basically just go see public health. Just go, I don't know what's going on, go see public health. I didn't fill out a ArriveCan. I never have. I always use Switch Health, but that seemed to confuse everybody at the border. So I crossed probably 10 times without even filling out a ArriveCan. So anyway, we get back, the guy hauls us in, and he started going at me about social media. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm 49 years old. I run my business on social media. I'm not a social media guy. I'm not here to prove a point. I'd phoned the border earlier. I explained to the public health that they told me I was going to get a ticket. Well, the ticket was $4,000. So they said, well, you just have $4,000. You're going to just throw out this ticket.
Nice.
Well, I had no choice. I was like, well, what do you want me to do? Well, you got to go back to the States. I said, no, I just drove 6 hours. We're here. They told me to get the ticket. Can I have the ticket? And luckily my friend, Karen MacArthur, I'd called her because I was getting a little nervous because I had, Jonathan, a player, with me, and I was like, what's going on? I'm like, well, public health's going to call you. They're going to call your mom. And I was like, geez, like, we just spent, 3 days in Hershey at this camp, and we didn't really have to deal with a lot of this. So anyway, they also told me I would get $1,000 fine if I didn't do the PCR test right then and there. I said, well, okay, I can do the PCR test within 24 hours. I'll take it home, do it with Switch Health, and send it in. No, we're going to give you another $1,000. So in the very end, the police officer has to come over and hand you the ticket. So the kid I'm with, Jonathan, just signs in Hershey. He's so excited. He's playing junior hockey in the U.S. He's going to get a full season in. It's his 17th birthday, and the police officer hands him a ticket for $4,000. So wow. I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, his mom is absolutely going to snap. Like, she's going to kill me. I'm like, $4,000. Wow. But, talking with Karen, I kind of knew, all right, Karen's going to kind of help me out here. She's going to kind of guide me, and I'm just going to, I'm going to take it to trial and see what we can do. So anyway, he really didn't want to give us the tickets. We both got a ticket for $4,000 each. Needless to say, I quickly dropped Jonathan off and said, hey, he made the team, but he got a ticket. See ya. And so anyway, so his mom, tried to get it reduced, but it's still, I think, going through they're waiting to see if they actually.
Yeah, all that stuff's going to get ripped up, man. They got nothing. Come on.
Oh, so listen to this. So I get the ticket. So I'm upset. I'm like, I can't believe this. I'm not sick. I've been doing tests around the players. And anyway, so I start phoning the courthouse and saying, hey, here's my case number. I've set a trial, but I haven't heard from anybody. They're like, oh yeah, no, we'll get a hold of you. So I wait a month. I call back to the Welland courthouse and say, hey, here's my ticket number. I've set a trial, but I haven't, I've sent it in, and it says that, yes, you've set the trial, but I haven't heard anything about dates or, anything. Yeah, we know. Thanks for, checking in with us. Usually we got to send out warrants for people. We're really glad you keep calling, but we're going to call you. Stop calling. And this was about the ticket. I'm like, okay, stop calling about the ticket. So anyway, so month goes by, I call again. So the guy was really nice. They were great. He said, you know what, listen, I'm going to put you on hold for a second. I'll look into it and I'll see, if you got a date or a trial. So he comes back and he says, hey, so there's about 1,400 cases ahead of yours. They haven't even started looking at them.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, he goes, I would just wait till we call you. I was like, okay. So I'm phoning Jonathan, okay, don't pay this ticket, don't pay it. we have negative tests. And I was testing. As soon as I got home, I would test, and then I would go do a rapid test. Like, I was negative. And if I was sick, I was following the rules. I wasn't going anywhere. I was going to quarantine, whatever. But
nobody goes anywhere when they're sick. It's like, this isn't common sense anymore. You don't want to make anybody, even if you got a head cold, you don't want to spread it around.
Yeah. But I mean, the virus was affecting some people really close to me. So like I said, I would never deny it. But as I was going to the States, it was kind of a mental clarity for me, because being wrapped up here, I was like, I can't believe, like, it's not like that down there. So I kept going to the States. So I went to Idaho and worked with a friend of mine out in Idaho who has some resistance training equipment. So I trained with him and took 4 flights across the US with a Canadian driver's license and a boarding pass. Everyone's like, oh, you can't travel. You got, you need this, that. I said, I just traveled across the US, 4 airports, 4 airplanes. All I used was my Canadian driver's license and a boarding pass. So the only issue with travel was when I hit the Canadian border. That was the only time that I was running into serious issues. So fast forward a little bit ahead. I work with a kid in Toronto, and Lachlan Wells, awesome hockey player, plays in the GTHL. His dad's a really great guy. And so he was kind of saying, hey, Corey, the Chamber of Commerce has a program they're starting up for rapid testing. I thought, you know what? Geez, I entered kind of the program. I put myself in the program all the players were in. So I was testing every 3 days, but it was hard to find tests. So when my friend Andrew phoned me and said, listen, the Chamber of Commerce has this program they're launching through the provincial government. Maybe you should look into it. That might be something that might help you out if, since you're always testing. So, it was an amazing program. So I went on to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and I have my own business. So I filled out all the application for keeping your business safe, for testing your employees. And so I thought, you know what? Okay, I've got my machine back here in Canada. I'm just going to test. So I'm quarantined, but I want to know if I'm carrying the virus or something. I want to be safe. I test my kids because my kids are getting sent home from school. So I just said, listen, like, here's a test kit. Stop sending them home. Just test them and stop. But anyway, they actually gave me the test kits back and said, what are these for? I said, COVID. Oh, well, we're not, it wasn't under their policies, the test kit. They gave them back to me.
Wow.
Okay. 2 weeks later, they were implemented in all the schools. Anyway, so I enter this program. I'm testing. I'm figuring out, I'm doing a lot of testing. I'm figuring out, wow, like, this is asymptomatic testing. That's what it says on the websites for Niagara Public Health. So I'm following the rules, but I'm like, man, everybody's negative. Nobody's positive. Well, then I do some more research, and I go out and I test one person who has COVID. Boom, positive. I'm like, okay, the test does work. I thought maybe it didn't work. I said, okay, so I find somebody else who has COVID, do a test, boom, positive. Okay. I'm like, why are we testing asymptomatic people who aren't sick?
Wow.
I was like, the tests work. They seem to be pretty accurate for what I'm seeing. So I reach out to the city and I say, listen, I'm seeing great progress with tracking this virus and keeping it out of my workplace. Maybe we should do this with the schools, the high schools, the arenas, enter the program, that the players are using, test. Well, we all know what, they were, they really, really in the beginning, they just wanted everybody to go out and, get the vaccine, right? I'm not anti-vax. I've seen the vaccine work on a lot of my clients. It's kept them out of the hospital. I'm not anti-vax. I've never, I'm not here to discredit it at all. But my family is not vaxxed. And to this day, no one in my immediate family, myself, my kids, have had COVID.
Because
everyone around me's had it. I'm just telling you what goes on.
But you feel like you already contracted it before the COVID thing hit, or no?
100%.
Okay.
And that's where, and I talk about natural immunity, and, clients talk to me, it's like, there's no way you haven't had COVID. I was like, I was February 2020, January 2020, and December 2019, my family was all sick.
Okay.
Went through every one of us.
Right.
I was in bed, 5 days. I was like, this is weird. I even joked with my kids. I went downstairs. Hey, I'm dying. Like, you're a sock. And I was like, no, but I mean, I kind of had a fever, but what I found weird was for 2-3 nights in a row, I'd get up just soaking wet, like I'd had a shower.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I've been sick before, but I was like, this is weird. But so after a couple of weeks, it felt better. And that's when I went to work for a week, and then boom, the doors were shut. I did, in kind of as I transitioned from energy fitness, Jeff Gamble, who amazing guy, him and Paul Skiba, they own Niagara Health and Rehab Center. So the mandates were gyms are closed, essential places can stay open. And Niagara Health and Rehab was, they were an essential because, with their services. So Jeff and I talked, and they gave me an amazing opportunity. They said, you can move in here. We're essential. Your training is essential with the technology you use. It's very beneficial for physio and for patients. We definitely, you can come in and work. So I moved my machine in there, beautiful facility. They set me up in the back of the gym there. It was amazing. Then the mandates hit again. They start pushing a little harder on, strength trainers can't. They can't work. So following the rules, I had to shut down again, which nothing against Niagara Health. They gave me a great opportunity, but everybody has to follow the rules. So I had to follow the rules. I couldn't really work. So now again, I have, very expensive technology that I can't have access to. So again, pulled the machine out, went to the States again, worked, came back. And I kept getting quarantined for 14 days. Every time I came into Canada, 14 days. So from April till I think September, I did I think it was 96 days quarantine. I've done 130 since.
Come on.
So because I entered the program for the rapid antigen testing, the first officer that came to my house was provincial, screening officer from provincial. And so I was working in my garage. I was safe. Everyone was tested. So he starts approaching me. He had a clipboard, mask, and I kind of knew, okay, this is the screening officer. I'm quarantined. I'm just in my garage. So I kind of approached him. He approached me, and I said, can I help you? He says, I'm looking for Corey Favell. I said, yeah, that's me. And he said, oh, okay. And he kept walking. I said, hey, before you come any farther, this is where I run my business. Can you produce a negative test for me? So he kind of looked at me, and he looked at his chart, and then he looks back at me, and he's looking at my name. He's like, well, I have my mask on, and I'm double vaxxed. I said, perfect. I said, but I need a negative test. I need to see a negative test. I said, you've probably been in a lot of houses with people quarantine. Can you just produce a negative test? So he's looking at the chart again, looking at me, and he goes, you're quarantined because you're American? I said, yep, that's the problem. My family lives here, but I keep going over to work there because apparently I'm essential. But when I come back, honest to God, the guy took his mask off and looked at his thing, and he says, you know what? I apologize what's happening here in Canada. He started apologizing to me, the screening officer.
Man.
Yeah. And I go, do you want me to test you so you'll know going to the next house that you don't have? He's like, no. He goes, you keep doing what you're doing. I'll never be back.
Wow.
I was like, perfect. Well, doesn't the next day, 2 days later, I'm in my garage, training, doors wide open, it's nice and warm out. Here comes mask, clipboard, a lady. It's like, wow, okay. I just thought they weren't coming back. Federal level, right? So now I'm like, well, wait a minute. This guy's making $65,000 a year as a screening officer on the provincial level. This guy's making $65,000 a year doing the exact same job on the federal level. Well, then the phone starts ringing. Hey, this is so-and-so, you're quarantined. You have, for 10 days. I said, what, 10 days? I thought it was 14. Well, no, this is the provincial government.
Oh my
It's 10 days.
God.
Oh yeah. So then when the federal called, I said, wait a minute. I go, whoa, hold on here. I go, I just got off the phone with a provincial screening officer, and you called me and you're asking me the exact same questions. Like, do you guys coordinate with each other? Oh no, it's 14 days. I don't know why provincial's telling you 10. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is, you know what? I'm just going to keep testing and doing my thing. And so anyway, that's why I was like, man, these guys are making a killing at doing the same job on two different levels, federal and provincial. So anyway, long story short, they came another time. My daughter's here and I was negative tested. I was quarantining. I was playing by all the rules. But if I wanted to, during the quarantine, I could go to the US. So if I was hungry, I can't go to a restaurant here, and it was bugging me mentally, I would just hop over to Buffalo, hop over to Lewiston, and I would go get something to eat. I'd hit the border again. How long you been over? About an hour. Well, how'd you get over? I'm American. Oh, okay. Did you fill out a ArriveCan? I go, for what? I just went for dinner. I'm handing you my passport, and I'm telling you, I'm arriving in Canada. Why do I have to fill out an app? Yeah. Then it would confuse them. So no, go to your 14 days. So I'd start my 14 days all over again, which was fine. I was testing and I was negative. So nobody around me, I was being safe, right? So that's what I had to do to kind of work. But when I did reach out locally to early on to our government here, our regional council and these guys, I went on them with, hey, how come we aren't using this provincial antigen testing program? And Walter and I, the mayor there, we had some back and forth, and he just kept saying, Corey, you need to get the vaccine. You have to get the vaccine. That's the only way you're going to get vaccine. I said, I'm not getting it. And I'm really not getting it now that I'm seeing all my clients who are getting it get COVID. Well, I haven't had COVID, so I'm thinking, from what I'm seeing, if I want COVID, I'm going to go get the vaccine. So I just made my choice. I'm just going to keep testing and just do my thing, right? I told them, I said, listen, I train a lot of kids in these local high schools. I said, they're not testing. I said, you have rules implemented in these high schools that are, we recommend. So public health and Niagara Health was recommending that they test students who were exposed to COVID, and they were recommending. And then when I talked to the high schools, they're like, well, no, we didn't test anyone coming back. I said, well, why not? Well, so the unvaxxed had to stay home for 14 days, even though they weren't sick, negative tested, and the vaxxed got to go back to school untested, back into the school. And I said, okay, you're just spreading the virus now. Like you're literally spreading it. I'm telling you, implement the testing. No, it's the unvaxxed that's doing it. And it was just, I was like, okay, this is really kind of not about a virus, right? It was, and then the mandates kept being pushed. And so, sorry, those are my dogs. Hold on. My guard dogs. Anyway, I must have said something bad about me. Awesome. Just kidding. Hey, quiet. So, where is that? So I started going on about, listen, like these kids are coming in here and, they're being let in the schools, exposed to COVID. They wouldn't want anything to do with it. Then I found out, I'm working with players that I'm testing, they're testing, we're negative, but I can't even go watch them play. Like I can't go into the arena. I can go over to Lewiston, I can go over to Buffalo, I can go to Hershey, I can go to Idaho, I can go anywhere I want, walk in the arena, but I can work with the players here, but I can't go in with a negative test. So I reached out to some friends, and it was the Meridian Center. I said, listen, there's people going in there with COVID, but they have the vaccine. They think they're not, it's spreading. Well, no, that's, we contact trace. And I'm like, well, I'm not contact trace. I'm tracing the actual virus. And I'm seeing that all the healthy people are sitting at home, and people infected with the virus are not being tested and they're being let into the arena. So I'm like, I was very frustrated, and I was like, you know what, this isn't. So the testing went out the window. They didn't want to do the testing. No one wanted to test. It was, I found with the testing, they were just kept pushing me for the vaccine. And I just said, you know what, I'm not, I've seen, a few mild cases of enlarged heart, irregular heartbeats with a couple athletes that I was working with. So I just made my choice of, I haven't been sick. Maybe if I have the antibodies, I'm going to continue with being safe with testing and using it on my family and keeping my family safe. So I've been exposed many times, and knock on wood, I haven't tested positive. I actually started testing again because I thought maybe I would have the virus and not know. So that's why I kind of started testing in. But it just seems the whole testing kind of went out the window. Yeah, we don't really need to do it anymore. And I don't know. I just kind of follow, our local hospital. I don't really care what's going on in Toronto. I just kind of following my local hospital and, seeing what was going on in there. My kids, I was in the hospital all night Christmas Eve for 24 hours with my 8-year-old. I was unvaxxed. They put me in a section with unvaxxed with probably 4 other people who had COVID. So they put me negative tested in with 4 people with COVID because I wasn't vaxxed. So it was like, okay, well, now you want me to get it. It was just a disaster. My daughter, her boyfriend tested positive for COVID. She had the exact same symptoms. They're 20 years old. They basically live together. She never got it. And she's unvaxxed. So I just was like, I don't know. Then when we got to the hospital, I took her in the one night. She's like, you know what? She was scared. She thought, I'm negative, but I don't know. If you watch the news, I'm going to die. So I said, I'll take you to the hospital. Took her to the hospital, walk in, we check in, and said, yeah, I got a negative test. She's got a negative test, but she's congested and she's sick. She's not feeling well, but she keeps negative testing. So we go in, doctor does blood work. No, you're negative. Looks at all her numbers and her blood work and says, you know what, you're like one of the healthiest kids in this hospital. Stand up. We're going to give you some, they gave her a therapeutic, azithromycin, and here you go, you're on your way. 4 or 5 days later, she was fine. The next day, her boyfriend went to the hospital here, the emergency. He has COVID. So he checks in and says, hey, I have COVID. I'm having trouble breathing. Okay, grab a seat. He's like, okay, I have COVID. It's pretty busy. Yeah, grab a seat. Sits down in the waiting room with COVID beside little Timmy, who's got a separated shoulder. And now he's sitting by a guy with COVID. So my daughter told me. So I was like, no. So I actually drove to the emergency and I walked in and I said to the girl, I said, I was in here last night with my daughter. Was I exposed to COVID? Was someone beside me? Did they have COVID? Because you're sitting people with COVID beside people who don't have COVID. Well, that's private information. I said, okay, if we go out that door, it's not private information. Everyone's asking for everybody's, medical information. So I said, well, the guard kind of looks at me. The guard walks away. He's like, oh, geez, I know what's going on here. The guard walks away. So I look back and I see Lucas in the emergency room. He's looking. I'm like, does anybody know that there's people in here with COVID? Everyone's like, there's no way. I go, there's people in here with COVID. People are like now they're kind of looking like, no way. I'm like, yeah. The nurse tells me at the desk with her shield and her mask, and she says, well, it's backed up with all the cardiac patients. I'm like, okay, so it's filled in the emergency with cardiac patients back there, and you're putting the COVID patients out in the waiting room? So yeah, they were just staring at me now. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave. I left. No one ever saw him. He just got up and left. My daughter's boyfriend, he ended up just leaving. So that's why I was like, wait a minute, I'm locked down. I'm losing my business. I'm following these mandates, but it doesn't seem like a big deal in the hospital here. And everyone's, anyway. So I was just physically seeing what kind of was going on. I was like, you know what? So I just started doing my own thing. And, I wear my mask where people ask me to wear my mask, but I always had a negative test. I wasn't sick. I started going to restaurants. There was some restaurants who were like, listen, as long as you're negative test, we're getting killed. We need business. So, I started going out in the community, but I'm healthy. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. So, long story short, still got the 4,000 ticket I'm waiting for. They tried to give me a 6,000. The last time I tried to enter Canada, my flights were delayed in, I think it was Chicago. So flight late coming out of Florida, missed the flight in Chicago. So now I'm hours behind. So my PCR test expired. So I get to the border, said, hey, I have a rapid antigen test. Said, oh, well, we need a molecular. I said, well, it's opposite for flying than land. Land and air travel and land is completely different. So I said, okay, well, I don't have the molecular test, but I do have the antigen. Here it is, it's negative. No, you got to go back to the US. I said, well, I'm not going back to the US. I played this game. I'm with Switch Health. I'm part of the provincial testing program. No, $6,000 fine. I said, okay, well, if I don't have the $225 to go back and do the PCR test, where when I came out of the airport, there's tents everywhere. $225 PCR tests, 20. So I asked the kid in Buffalo at the airport. I walked by, I go, hey, do you guys work for like Buffalo Health, or do you work for the airport? Like, no, there's a bunch of dudes who have these tests sitting up making a killing off you Canadians. I was like, okay. I said, well, I'm doing the same thing back home. I'm doing the rapid antigen tests, and I'm testing all the people working for the city. They're handing in the invoice. The city is paying me to test healthy people. I was like, okay, that's the gig I'm doing. They're doing the same thing over in Buffalo. And then I passed 3 tents on the way to the border. Hey, $225. Border guy, hey, go back, pay $225. I said, I'm not paying $225. I have my test. It's antigen. We need molecular. I said, give me the ticket. It's like, wow, $6,000. I said, no, I can't afford $6,000, but I don't really have an option. So, and so he goes back inside, and this is not customs. Customs wants nothing to do with it. They send you to public health. So public health, then the guy comes out and, oh, you're getting a warning. I said, okay, thank you for the warning. Like, it's just a nightmare. So then I realized I'm arriving without filling out a ArriveCan every time. So then I started looking into ArriveCan, and my point was, when I arrive in Canada, I'm handing you my passport and I'm telling you I'm arriving in Canada, and hey, Corey's arriving in Canada. Why do I have to do it again? Why do I have to? Well, so I spent an hour on the phone the other day with the federal level of public health, and they couldn't tell me why. Well, it's the law. So, well, is it really the law? Because when I hand in my passport and I say, here, I'm entering Canada, no, you have to fill it out. So I don't know what's going on. People are still, there was a couple the other day, older couple, don't have cell phones. They're not in tune with smartphones. They don't have $12,000 for 2 people coming back from Florida. It's $12,000, $6,000 each, because they didn't know how. They're negative tested. They're not sick. They don't. So I was like, wow, something very odd is, going on. And, I just found the people that were healthy were becoming unhealthy. So it was tough because, the division that was happening with, I was trying to tell, our mayor, I was like, you're creating division between, like, I go to the store and people are spraying me with stuff. Like, these people think that, like, I'm killing people. And I'm like, no, I have a negative test. It doesn't matter. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? So I started acting like, well, can you explain to me why you're so scared of me? Well, so you didn't have a mask on. I go, yes, but I'm negative. I have a negative test. You know that. You know what I do for a living. I test like all the players. Oh yeah, it was scaring the shit out of me. They'd spray disinfectant. I said, that's the division that's going on. The healthy people are just deemed whatever, sick, rebellious, non-compliant. I don't know. It was frustrating. I was just lucky that I was American. I could keep going to the States and, feeling some freedom and going to a restaurant without, feeling like I had to cover my face or,
Yeah.
It was just, and like I said, just people say, wow, just wear your mask. But I'm telling you, if you look at these kids mentally, what it's doing to people. I have 5 kids. My 6-year-old, he's in grade 1, but he's barely been through, JK and SK. And now he's having, not issues, but he doesn't pronounce his words properly. Well, no one's seen his mouth for 3 years. Jeez. Now he's in grade 1. It's like, well, yeah, he's not forming words probably with his tongue, but who was ever going to fix it? Because you couldn't see his mouth for 3 years. And the amount of times they sent him home from school, he's in grade 1. I'm like, he's barely been to senior kindergarten or junior kindergarten. So, what's happening with the education? Plus, the mental stress that was going on. Like I said, I have 5 kids. I work with kids. I just saw how the mandates were just crushing healthy people. I don't know. It was heartbreaking. But virus is real. I've seen, some of my good friends have, succumbed to the virus, but I don't know. I'm just 2 years later. My family hasn't had it. We're unvaxxed. I'm exposed to it steady. If I get it and go tomorrow, that was a final destination. I'm not trying to cheat anything. But since I've been 20 years old, I've been really trying to work on my health. And, I found the healthier kids, all the kids that I was training who, hey, I have COVID. I'm like, okay, you can't come in today. How you feeling? Well, I feel fine. I'm like, okay, well, you still can't come in. Let me know. And then I found as you were testing, the line got lighter and lighter and lighter as your symptoms went away. So they would test. And as soon as the line's gone, like, come on back. But I would train kids next day. Hey, I had COVID. I'm like, okay. So I'd shut down for 72 hours and okay, I don't have it. No, okay, open back up again. But it just seemed to be with the younger, the healthier kids, the symptoms were just boom, there and gone, right? And they recovered a lot faster. In the beginning, I worked with, that's right.
Well, first of all,
sorry, I talk a lot.
I should say, first of all, I'll go backwards. First of all, that is the greatest single open I've ever seen on this show. We're 47 minutes in, and I can't believe that story is nothing short of fantastical. And now you have the privilege, I hate that word now, but of being a dual citizen, a dual citizen that has been able to freely go across the border and see both sides of it and experience, because you're a business owner, and experiencing the lockdowns and had antigen tests on you all the time. I've never tested. I've never masked. I've never quarantined. I've never traveled across the border though either. So you've got probably one of the most amazing stories because of your mobility and the fact that you're a dual citizen. So, I'm really, I never know why I have people on the show. I mean, Josh told me I saw you in the comments section when I was talking.
Josh is great. Him and I played in a band together. Greatest kid in the world. I love
Lord
him.
Freedom. I mean, I didn't even know why I was interviewing him, but what a great interview. And he's such a radical monster. Just this Viking looking, and it was just a great show. So when I saw you in the comments section of the show, I'm like, I think I know this guy. So, and then, you put it succinctly because of all your availability to experience it, to get the tickets, to see what was going on. And I think that I just learned a whole lot about what's going on because, I haven't changed. I'm a broadcaster. I've got a strong opinion on stuff, and I haven't changed my mind on any of this stuff since it started. But you really put it succinctly with all your experiences and how many times you figure you've tested then, and how much are these tests?
Well, that's okay. So when I first started getting into with Dr. Hergy and Walter, we had some communication back and forth, and Walter said, you know what, maybe he's right. Maybe this testing is something. So he went to Hergy and forwarded, my emails and said, hey, here's what this guy's doing. Here's the provincial program. Hergy came right back with, you'll get 300 to 400 false positives. Well, I've tested myself 300 to 400 times and I've never had a false positive. I've tested hundreds of people and I've never had a false positive. So I just thought, okay, well, explain, where did you see the false positives? The communication got cut off, went silent. I said, well, there's no way that these false. Well, so then I took a test and I just ran it under the water without taking a step out of the procedure. I took the buffer away, didn't use the buffer, and I ran it underwater. Well, it's positive. Well, so if you don't use them properly, you can get a false positive.
I gotcha.
So then they start handing them out to kids like candy and the thing. I'm like, Well, you're not even monitoring it. These kids are going home with buffer that, looks like eye drops that, could probably kill you if you took it. Now they're hitting. I'm like, nobody's monitoring it. Well, here's the trick. The government's giving you, $250 a kid every time they're home. So,
oh man,
boom, put it underwater. Oh, positive. My kid's staying home. I get $250. So
the stories of strawberries testing positive for COVID are actually true. If tap water,
yeah, but like you said, if you're doing a scientific experiment and you take one of the procedures out, it's not proper. You're not doing it properly. So yeah, it's a false positive, but you're not even performing the procedure properly. So
wow.
That's when I was like, okay, yeah, you can manipulate these tests, but if you use them properly, there is no way you'll get a false positive. I've never had someone test positive that was sick. Everyone tested positive who had COVID. So that's what I was trying to explain to them. Like, well, that's 100% wrong. Well, then, that's when I got into, okay, everyone kept telling me, you got to go to your MP. You got to go to your MP. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to book. Rebecca Hahn was great. She really walked me through a lot of stuff. I got to give big props to her because I just wanted to lay low and she kind of kept, Corey, you got to say something. You got to.
That was my next question. How did you ever get to a point? I know you brought a delegation and a presentation to regional council, and I can't, who wants to do that? I mean, I public speak for a living basically, and I would never want to go before those clowns.
I wanted to know where he got the false positives. I wanted to know. I had questions with what he was putting out in the Standard. I couldn't believe, I grew up in this town. I have so much respect for, the Burgoynes and everyone who, ran the Standard and the Standard.
But it's no Burgoyne Standard anymore, bro. That's long.
Well, I go in and buy the Standard. I buy them all and I throw it in the garbage because I can't believe what I'm reading on the front of the paper because it's going exactly against everything. I'm like, this is causing the division. That's what I was trying to tell Hergy and Walter. I said, it's causing division. That's what you guys are. You're just dividing everyone. And
you know what? I failed to believe that this. I'm not much in the conspiracy theories, but this seems like it's the fix has been in since the beginning, and I don't think that. Well, I always said that these people aren't that clever or that devious or that evil, but there's more and more people coming out talking about the WEF and Schwab and the Great Reset and, guaranteed annual incomes. And, it's, I don't want to get too political here, but, somebody said the other day, how quickly people started masking. And I brought this up many times. In August 2 years ago, they passed it at the regional level. And it was where you can't social distance, indoors, wear a mask. And the next day, people in their cars alone and walking down the beach were wearing masks. And I'm like, my faith in humanity has been crushed because I can't believe that many people just bought into, with no scientific research, that they work. There's gaps all over them and all this this will probably get me shut down from YouTube as well. But, and so it broke me in more than one way because I just feel like I'm intensely political and I feel hopeless about the politics that are going on, especially in the States. But now in Canada, I can't even believe where we've come from. And now I don't know where it goes from here. But anyway, we went from people using masks where they didn't need them with no proof that they worked to putting the Ukrainian flag on their profile. I'm not taking sides in the war in Ukraine. I know very little about it. I did have a guy come on my show that explained it very well about how they backed Putin into a corner with NATO and stuff like that. And I didn't know the history. And he I learned a lot on that show too, but it's almost like they're training you for the next time they want you to do something. And nobody told anyone to put Ukraine flags up. And now you see the brutality that's going on in Ukraine. That ain't no democracy over there, dude.
I'm a guy who tends to I want to worry about me, my town, where I'm coming from is because, and we do have so much information out there. You can go and research it, right? So if I want to learn about, okay, well, what is going on in the UK? Back in the day, well, we'd go to the library and we'd read up on it. Well, the internet, yeah, there's, lots of different sites. There's lots of different information. So you kind of have to pick through it and kind of make your decision. But when I make my decision, I don't force it on other people. I don't try to convince other people. I make my decision. I just try to keep myself sane and happy. Whatever's going on over there, yeah, I'm worried about here. I'm in the US a lot. I love talking to the military over there. When I fly back, I chat their ears off. And yeah, I mean, they're kind of, they're at the point where they're very political. The military really is for the people. They fight for the people. They don't fight for the government. They fight for the people. So I was just, I really loved, the way the Americans kind of, I don't know, not necessarily handled it. Each state was different, right?
Yeah.
You go into New York.
Well, we saw the differences in the states that didn't do much of anything.
Yeah.
And,
so you go into New York City, everyone's got masks on, the mandate. You go a little bit outside to the smaller, the outskirts, the smaller towns. Nobody, not a lot of people are wearing the masks. And like I said, small town and, down in Pennsylvania, you hit those small little old wartime towns and people weren't wearing masks, or people weren't so scared, right? I think that's maybe the word I'm looking for. They weren't so scared, right? In Canada, people are scared. They're scared.
Yeah.
And I'm a jerk because I'm not scared. Right. So, I'm not, but I mean, I test every day. Every time, hey, do you need a mask? I'm like, I don't know. Do you need a test? Like, I have a negative test. I don't, I can wear one. And anytime anyone asks me to wear a mask, I put a mask on. I got my hair cut the other day.
You put those blue surgical masks on your face? Or
those ones. Yeah, I wouldn't. Whatever. It was, I had a couple cool ones in the beginning.
I got a neck gaiter. It's nylon, and if I ever, because when I came to the Dominican Republic, I was not going to a Dominican jail. So if they, and I had to put it on to go into the bank to open up an account. But
when you travel
down here, they only wear the mask like this over their mouth.
This guy, people, they're down like this, and I'm like, I don't even know what to say anymore. I don't know. I put one on to get my hair cut the other day. She thanked me thank you so much for putting your mask on. I was like, no problem. I'm courteous. When I left and took it off, there was I had to cut my hair around my ears. Like, I was like, okay, like, no big deal. I cut my hair, felt bad. It was like, but you know what? They want me to wear it. I wear it.
I feel sad.
I'm not getting a vaccine because I haven't seen, I haven't been sick. So, I've been exposed many, many, many times. So anyway, not against it, but I just.
All right, here's a hard cut. Let's get the fuck off this, man. This is amazing conversation, but you mentioned a lot of great people. I just want to acknowledge the Nitsopoulos family. What a great family. AJ, awesome. I knew AJ before he was too young to run anything, and now the dude is like a straight up stud in business. I'm so proud of that kid. And so I'm glad to hear that you're connected and gamble. I mean, I know a lot of these guys that you were mentioning and stuff like that. Yeah. But let's switch it up. Let's talk about the podcast. First of all, I don't know if you know this, but I've been a Flyer fan since I was 5. And I like the Broad Street Bullies were my boys, and I stayed a Flyer fan. I've never been another hockey fan. Always a Flyer fan. And I'm loyal as the day is long. I don't watch hockey anymore. I joked the other day. I wasn't joking. Bettman actually ruined the NHL. It's unwatchable now because of and I know you get this in the NFL, and I'm more a football fan now anyways, but I know you get this in the NFL a little bit where well, you don't get it so much in the NFL, but in the NHL, I just found that the good games were so far and few between. Like the good back and forth games that were just unbelievable were just like every 20 games or 30 games. You had the left wing lock and the neutral zone trap, and then they started. You can't. There's no interference, and then you can't. They took the intimidator out.
Instigator rule.
Yeah, the instigator rule. That's it exactly. So I can't watch it anymore. But when I came to football, I just naturally gravitated towards Philly. And I'm Eagles fan like you won't believe. And Randall Cunningham was the quarterback, so I just stayed Philly all the way. So anyways, and I've had Riley Cote on the show a couple times.
Riley,
Nasty Knuckles, hemp, healing hemp. Just a solid dude. And what he's done for the hemp industry, you know what? I never thought that in the States marijuana would be legalized before industrial hemp goes, as the story goes. But yeah.
Well, it's state to state.
Yeah, right.
But Riley's in Pennsylvania, so he's in it's not so legal in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but industrial hemp, you still can't grow the stuff. And it's weird. In Canada, you can't sell CBD, which isn't even a drug. In the States, it's wide open. You can sell it anywhere. I mean, we can't even import it into Dominican Republic. I'm looking into seeing if I got a few contacts. Maybe they can ask around. I think it's a long shot, but CBD is it's like a miracle. And in Canada, you have to be a certified and approved drug seller to sell CBDs. And I've been in the industrial hemp business since '01. Brad Sheen and I started Nature's Hemp, and the best thing you can put in your body is essential fatty acids. I don't need to tell you that. And it's if you have a CVD, a heart attack, or a stroke, the best thing you can do is eat hemp oil immediate after. You can get away with fish oil or whatever, but the balance of a 369 in the hemp oil, and I should have been on this, but I was more political and stuff like this. But you want to talk about staying healthy during flu season, eat hemp oil every day. Your immune system is tight because it just replenishes the cell membranes made out of essential fatty acids. So is your brain. So is a lot of your blood,
First off, Riley, what he's done, opening the eyes of the NHL and the Players Association for helping players.
But he's been taking a shit kicking too. He took a shit kicking in Philadelphia with Hextall and stuff. At some points in time there, he was the monster too, right?
He did. Philadelphia, once Ed Snyder passed away, everything, the statue came down, a lot of stuff really started happening. I know
the statue came down. Why?
Yeah, they took the statue of Kate Smith down.
Oh, because she was.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. But
we don't need to go there.
Riley, and because I really connect with Riley because, it's a whole nother podcast, but my oldest daughter was misdiagnosed at 14 and she was just given pills. Here's a pill, here's a pill, here's a pill. Well, by 19, I'm spending, half my life in the psychiatric ward with my daughter.
Wow.
And at 19, when I finally got her out of there and I said, we're going the medicinal cannabis way. You're getting your license.
No shit.
And never turned back. She's
wow.
We have our ups and downs, but ever since I got her off those, and they would kick me out of the hospital. Why you're giving your daughter street drugs? I said, I told you I was giving her CBD. Well, THC causes schizophrenia. I said, please tell me you know the difference between CBD and THC. Well, no. And I was like, give my daughter relief. But anyway, that was. So I saw the benefits of the CBD and the medicinal cannabis. Mm-hmm. And then Riley was my biggest fan. So the 40th anniversary of the Flyers, they flew my dad down. I went with him. I'm like, I'm going with you.
Cool.
Private jet out of Buffalo, getting to Philly. Joe Cadillac meets us there.
No.
Just forever. Yeah. Joe Cadillac's like, come on, we're going to go. I'm going to give you a tour of the room. The game's at 7.
Cool.
It's like 3 p.m. They're like, hey, here's, whatever. So we walk in and I think, can't remember, Ken Hitchcock was coaching. So we walk in, hey, Ken, hey, we go into the room. Well, here's Riles in the room. It's 3 p.m. He's got the hair and he was a rookie. He just made the team.
Oh,
so
really?
He was like, oh yeah, he's breathing fire. I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
That's nasty knuckles right there, baby.
Yeah, that was Riley Cohen. I'm like, I've never seen this guy play, never heard of him, but I fucking love that he's here this early. He's jacked. I didn't even know he was the tough guy.
Yeah.
And I always loved the tough. I love the Dave
Brown.
Brown.
Able to tell he's tattooed head to toe. He looks like a tough guy.
I don't think he had any back then,
right.
But so anyway, we watched the game, whatever it goes in, that was against the Rangers. Anyway, so that was my first interaction with Riley. So he goes through his whole career and I loved him. The guy was he won, 2-punch Tucker in Toronto. I was just like, this guy's.
Yeah. And he scored on Carey Price, his only goal in the NHL. I tease him about that all the time. Carey Price says hello.
Hey, he did it. He made it. I mean, that was probably the easiest thing he ever had to do was score a goal, right? Fighting is the hardest, mentally, it's the hardest thing in the game. So anyway, I was a big fan. And then when he transitioned from the game, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this guy's like cannabis and the CBD. And I'm like, shit, he knows what he's doing. He's meditating, he's doing, and he's looking great. He's not looking like one of these guys who got handed a handful of pills and, hey, I know alcohol calms you down. We'll try some of these. And
he could have very easily paid the price with CTE too. I think hemp saved him, right? I mean, like,
I think 100%. And I find it for recovery with my athletes and just strength training and recovery. I do tons of tests with one of my guys, Gerald Major, was, he was arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. But for pain management, he had to really use a lot of cannabis, a lot of CBD. But man, the gains I was getting out of this guy is like, because his body recovers in a relaxed state like that. So I've done a lot of tests with it. It's pretty interesting. But and like I said, I'm not a drinker. I don't drink.
It was always my goal, even back in 2001, to have an EFA CBD combo. I don't think there's one out there, but you need to take them both every day. You know what I mean? And I was on CBD for a little while, and I was on the EFAs. You know what? I took EFAs for maybe 10 years on and off, but mostly I would put it in my power drink every day at the end, stir it with a spoon so the blades didn't damage the oils and stuff like that. And I think I got lasting gains that I'm still benefiting from that dosing, even though I haven't taken it now in probably a year. I recover from colds quicker. My cuts heal quick. I remember my brother and I got the same cold a few years ago, and he was down for 7-8 days, and I was over it in 3. I know it was the same cold because it was same symptoms. Started out with a headache, then I get a cough, then I get the sneezes, and then I was done. And my brother had it for almost a week and a half, and I was done in 3 days. And I was like, man, this hemp oil is working. And there was no CBDs in it, just EFAs, just essential fatty acids.
Yeah. And like I said, even just for industrial, why are we not using this industrial?
Everyone should have a bottle of it in their fridge. And that's the first thing, and, we've all got women in our lives, or most of us do, that, you know what, I mean, that's the greatest thing you can give them, for their monthly cycles, because, and Brad Sheen, sister Dana, she's no longer with us now, God bless her soul, but she had a horrible monthly cycle. And when she was on the hemp oil, she was like way better. Like, I mean, pain and mental, like it was just horrible. And she was just one of those unfortunate women. Some get it easy, some have a hard time with it. And Dana had a real hard time with it. And she only, like, when she ran out, she'd notice it. And we're like, dude, don't run out. Like, because, you wake up in the morning, your back doesn't hurt. You don't go, oh, my back feels great today. You wake up and your back hurts. You're like, oh, I'm hurting today. So it's really weird that you don't notice yourself getting better because everything you just don't notice it because everything feels good. But when you stop taking it, man, it's like, you can dropping off the bridge when you got severe conditions, and it goes to mental state and, immune system and all that kind of stuff. So many things, CBDs. I'd love
to look at the numbers to see with, CBD and cannabis users, what, if they've, what their symptoms were like with the virus, or if they, because I know
here's another thing, I thought that smokers would be really harshly targeted by COVID, and they weren't. People weren't saying if you're a smoker, you're going to die, and smokers were not, and marijuana smokers are even less, are more resistant to it. But I just figured that the smokers would really have a hard time with it, and the stats just didn't bear it out. The smokers were just, I'm not saying it was helping them, but they weren't dying in disproportionate numbers, And you'd think they would be from a respiratory disease.
It's crazy, yeah, I know. Like I said, we kind of learned a lot the last 2 years, and that's why I said that. That's why I always
back into that conversation again.
I know, but that's why I always say was, what was it like? I said, the biggest struggle for me was the mandates. It wasn't the virus. With my family, with the, it was the mandates that were.
What it was for me is when I interviewed Shandor, and I've told this story many times, and I don't know if you know Shandor, but he liked my tweet today, which is uncommon for him. He doesn't, but whatever. We're friends, and I didn't know him. He was hassling me when he was the Brock Bug or whatever to get on the show, and I was, I don't get into Brock politics, but then when he did the Scrape for Truth, and I just started. I don't know how I got introduced to him, but I interviewed him, and I went out and I met his kid. I think he was about 18 months old, and he said to me, Jimmy, he goes, like, my kid's going to be, like, he's going to be almost 2 years old when this mandate ends, and who knows, we know they're going to extend it. And other than my wife and our parents, he will not have seen a human expression other than ours. And my heart broke on the street right there. And I'm like, I say I do this for the kids. I don't have any, but it's all about the kids. And it's going to be decades before we are present to the impact of the damage that we've done to kids by putting masks on them. And, I saw a kid about a year and a half ago, I was outside of Lakeport Fish and Chips. And he was probably from one of the lower income houses, and he was pushing a stroller, and he was kind of a rough looking kid, and he had about a 2-year-old in the stroller, and I make eye contact with the kid, and I love kids, so I'm always staring him down and talking to him, and I say to this kid, I said, you want to go? You think you're better than me? You and me, let's go, like this. And the kid's kind of looking at me like this, and his dad just laughs at me, and he pulls out a mask, and he puts it on this 2-year-old kid's face, and he says to me, well, it's not going anywhere. I might as well get him used to this mask. And I didn't say anything, but my heart fucking broke, And even at church, when I went back to church after they lifted the mandates, you see cute little Greta come in, or maybe it wasn't Greta, maybe Greta wasn't. But these are my beautiful, cute kids, and it broke my heart to see them masked. And I don't think we'll know for decades the damage we've done to them, and that's the most unfortunate thing. But we've all paid a price mentally, and now you talk about the division, man. We've all lost friends and family because we stuck to our guns, or because you were a sheep in our eyes, or whatever. Like I try not to judge. You want to take the shot, you want to wear a mask, that's fine. Just leave me the fuck alone. That's what I keep saying. I just want to be left alone. Just don't bug, and so it's been an absolutely horrible time, and I don't even want to ask the question of what you think is coming, because I don't think any of it's good, to be honest with you. But I'm sorry for what you went through, having 5 kids, and having a business like that. Like, I was broadcasting, I was selling some real estate. Well, not very much real estate, but my life didn't change all that much. I was a kind of a loner anyways. I was used to isolating. So, yeah, it kind of hurt because I couldn't go see my bands and stuff like that. But when the vax came out and my favorite band started, the venues that they were playing at started insisting that I had a shot, I'm like, this fucking sucks. So when my government said you can't leave the country without a shot, I had a couple weeks. I got my shit together, and I left 1 week before the mandate came in. And I hope they lift it soon, but it's heartbreaking, all of it. It's too bad.
Honestly, the U.S. border, I don't. Sometimes they may not ask you if you're vaccinated.
I got a buddy that's in Dominican Republic right now that on January 2nd or something, he drove across and he had his paperwork. I'm not going to, wasn't probably legit or whatever, but they said, where are you going? He said, Florida. How long? 3 weeks? Go ahead. That was it. Yeah. He just drove clean through. It was no problem. And this is in January,
I started Canadians who had houses down in Florida. They could only fly down. Nobody could cross the border. Canadians couldn't cross the border. So I said, hey, I'm American. I'll drive your car. So
nice.
So guys were flying. I'd go over to the Niagara Falls airport. I'd take their car here, go to the Niagara Falls airport. Boom, they'd fly in. And one guy even told me, hop back on the plane. My pilot will drop you off in Niagara on the Lake. I'm like, no, I got to cross by land. I'm doing everything legit. I got to cross by land. I got to do my 14-day quarantine. I'm not going to fly in unannounced.
Wow.
So, so I was, and I drove Helen Rombo's car down to Florida for her, picked her up at the airport, stayed down in Naples.
Helen Roundbum. Haven't heard that name in a long time. She's an old Remax agent friend of mine.
Yeah. She's a great lady. So I drove her car down, and then, so I was taking American, and Mike Palmatier is, hey, I haven't been down. I'm like, I'll drive your car. He's like,
is Palmatier still a Remax agent?
I don't know. He just golfed with my dad a couple days ago. They golfed again this week. So he's right down there. So I don't know. He fishes a lot. He's got a fishing boat. I think he had his fishing boat in the Beacon for a little bit there. And then I know he's in Florida now, but
this is a good segue. I was always Bernie Perrant in net. But I had a great glove, and when I made a great glove save, I was Palmatier.
Yeah.
How the hell do I get Bernie Pront on my show, dude? And tell me about the podcast.
Okay, so yeah, Kim and I kind of through the lockdowns, we really started connecting. We thought, just because of the history with our dads, and Kim's the exact same age as me. We both have 5 kids. We just had a real great connection and a great history there that we thought we'd start up the podcast and get some former players on that played with our dads or, had interactions with them. So, yeah, it was going good. And then,
so what's it about? What's it about though? Like, what are you talking? You just talking sports or you just?
Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, okay, so we had Ray Shiro on. So Ray Shiro's dad coached the Flyers, won the cup. So we wanted to get, his view is, you were 12 years old. We were, 2.
Yeah.
What was it like as a 12-year-old when they won the cup, and your dad was like, oh yeah, you're playing mini sticks. And I always put Bernie's mask on. And so just those stories, we really loved getting out. And I loved hearing Kim's stories because her dad never got traded, right? He was
damn straight. He was still
Flyers,
a legend.
Right?
Legend.
He's
now that picture of him standing on his stick looking like so bored, it's like a classic. But my favorite hockey cards were always Bernie Pront, man.
Yeah.
and Bobby Clark.
Yeah. And well, it's funny too, because Kim's brother, Bernie, there's Bernie Pront, and then there's Bernie Jr. Okay. And then Bernie had a son, Bernie
the third.
And yeah, Bernie the third. Little Bernie is an amazing basketball player. He's lighting it up down there in Jersey.
Really?
Yeah. So you might see Bernie Pront, the basketball player, coming up next. So
nice.
Great fit. Like
cool
Kim,
stories, man.
Bernie, even Kim's mom, Carol, amazing lady. So yeah, I think you should get Kim on, rack her brain for a little bit.
Cool.
And,
I did. I think I shot her a message because after I started adding you and looking around and going to your websites and stuff like that, I noticed, she's Bernie's rep, right? So I'm like, hey, I've been chasing Bernie for years, just because he's my childhood idol, right? But I'm also chasing grapes. And and Jerry Cheevers too is one of my favorites too, because he grew up in St. Catharines, and my father's mother used to babysit Jerry Cheevers. Wow, and so when Doug Irwin Doug Irwin was a kid I went to school with back at Carleton. His father was connected somehow to the NHL, and he had all the mailing addresses for all the teams. So, and I remember how brokenhearted I was. Jerry Cheevers didn't return my message because I'm like, my dad said that his mother babysat you and blah, blah, blah. And I wrote I was so excited, handwritten letter. I sent it off to Jerry Cheevers, and just like Santa Claus, he didn't write me back.
Well, hey, so last year, I'm sitting in my garage training out of there, and I had a buddy of mine who had topical creams with CBD and THC, and a lot of Jerry's right down with my dad. Jerry and my dad are very close. They're good buddies. So I'm sitting out there, all of a sudden my phone rings and it says Jerry Cheevers. I'm like, Jerry Cheevers. So I answer my hello. He's like, hey, Corey, it's Jerry Cheevers calling. I'm like, really? Like Jerry Cheevers? He's like, yeah, like Jerry. I think he's like, I'm with Brad Park and maybe Eddie Westfall. So I was like, holy. So he's like,
legends.
Hey, your dad gave me some of that cream.
No.
For my elbow. And, I'm coming back. I'll be in St. Catharines in July, and I'd like to come by. I want to see your machine. I think maybe I could. I'm 80. I'm getting a little. Maybe I want to hit the ball farther. I want to come see you. But these guys all want the CBD cream for their joints and tendons. Cool. And so anyway, I was like, oh my God, Jerry Cheers. I don't think I've ever met him, but him and my dad are close. They're always doing something. And my dad always told me back when he was a kid, he was a little younger, but he said the only guy who could outrun him was Jerry Cheevers playing lacrosse, because Jerry was a really good lacrosse player too.
Right.
He said there's only one guy faster than me, and that was Jerry Cheevers. So,
wow.
So if he comes to St. Catharines, we'll have to we'll hook up, because I think he comes and he golfs at here at the St. Catharines Club when he's in town.
Cool, man. Childhood idol. So a little bit more about the podcast, and then tell me specifically about the machine.
Okay, yeah. So the podcast, I think Kim and I, we've been talking. Our last episode we were supposed to do was with Mike Keenan. It kind of got put off. I was in Jersey.
I fucking love Mike Keenan. He was just like the biggest asshole, but what a great coach, man.
I love it, because I've talked to some people who've played for him, and I just love the stories. Like I do some work. Mike Hartman is a guy who does a lot of mindset training. I work with him.
Cool, yeah.
And I get him to, he played on the Rangers when they won the cup, but
he was not a player's coach, eh?
Yeah, no, he's like he's just telling me the thing that like, Keenan, you walk in the room and, he'd give it to Tony Amonte and be like, hey, where do you think you fit in on this list? There'd be like Mark Messier, Adam Graves, Nemchinov, and Amonte, I think I fit right under there, and like Keenan would just rip into him. So I just love hearing the Keenan stories. The players loved him and hated him, but he really was made them play in top shape.
Got the most out of them. Got the most out of everyone.
And then
he could put a team together too. Didn't he put a Canada Cup team together once?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Because I think Tocchet was on
good
that
team too, man.
Wendell Clark. Yeah. So anyway, and Kim's very good friends with like Danny Briere, and she's been in Philly that whole time, and so she knows the Hextall family, and so she does a lot of the guest coordinations, I guess. So I ask kind of the guy questions, and
cool.
Sort of her questions of
that's awesome.
But we just like kind of talking about how it was growing up.
Nice.
What we kind of saw.
I got a little bit of that out of Tim Cherry when I interviewed him, because Grapes is untouchable, but that's a guy you got to pull a string and get that guy on, man. I'd love to see a long form interview with him, because he's going to be gone. I hope he lives another 100 years, but like when that guy goes, like, when Elvis died, my mother fucking cried for weeks, and I never, like, I'm like, okay, so I try and put myself in that frame of mind, like, who do I love that much that when they die, I'm going to be that messed up? And maybe that's one of those guys. I don't know, but
well, I haven't met Don either, but apparently when he coached in Colorado, my dad had a fight with the owners and said, I'm not playing for you. Well, Don Cherry came in, was having goalie troubles, said, listen. And my dad played with Dick Cherry, his brother. So we had known the Cherries forever, right? So Don said, listen, I want Favell. He's in great shape. He's up living in the mountains. I want him to play. They're like, you can't have him. He can't play here. So one night on Hockey Night in Canada, I'm sitting around with all my buddies, Coach's Corner's on, and Don Cherry comes on. He says, Dougie Favell cost me my job in Colorado. And everyone's they're looking at me like, your dad cost him his job? I go, no. I go, he's joking. And like he's not joking. He hates your dad. He's like, Dougie Favell cost me my job in Colorado, this and that. So I always wanted to see him and say, like, listen, like,
we got to get something straight, Grapes.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, but he was at a dinner. He always comes down for to support Steve Ludzik.
Yeah, he does.
So he'll always make an appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he just slides in the back door, he'll take some pictures, say a couple things, but he still is genuine that way. He'll make an appearance.
Oh, yeah.
So my dad sent me a picture. Hey, you're late for dinner, and he's got his arm around Don Cherry, and I'm like, oh. So I could have met him, but I was like 20 minutes late for dinner, and Don was already gone. So I just really hope he's a guy who I loved Coach's Corner.
I don't get starstruck, but I met him I did not meet him. I could have walked up to him at the Meridian Center, and he was standing with a friend of mine, and I was frozen. I'm kind of awkward that way, because I don't like approaching famous people just because it puts them out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think they get tired of it or whatever. I couldn't do it. And I remember coming out of the Bill Burgoyne Arena, I was talking about the Burgoynes, and Bobby Orr was in town signing autographs for, I was playing Kiwanis, and my mother was standing beside me, and she was just white as a ghost, and I didn't know at the time, but she
was probably the mystery goalie. He was probably the mystery goalie in Kiwanis.
Yeah, maybe he was. Well, your dad was once too when I was a kid.
They were. Don Cherry was Bobby Orr. Remember that when those guys used to come?
Yeah, maybe Bobby Orr was the mystery goalie. Anyways, he's signing autographs, and I got my autograph from him. I'm long lost it by then. And my mom says to Bobby Orr, she says, "Can I just get a kiss?" And he said, sure. So she kissed him right on the lips. And I'm like, Ma, I'm telling Dad. And she says, I don't care. You can tell your dad. I just kissed Bobby Orr. She awesome. Loved him, man. But that's very cool, man. I'm glad that you're putting that together. And just before I let you go, man, I've kept you way too long. Tell me about this machine, because I don't know anything about what it is, but it must be something special.
Yeah. No, it's a new technology. I was, I felt I could have went a lot farther playing hockey if I was a lot stronger, right? I had really fast hands, but my feet weren't so fast because I wasn't very strong. So I kind of have always biohacked my body, and I always had a membership at the Y, and I always tried to, try and stay in good shape. And 5 years ago, when I got introduced to this technology out of Texas, they came to me and said, you work with athletes, and this might be something, this might help your athletes. So I signed up for the program, like, yeah, whatever, sign me up. And I did 10 weeks on this adaptive resistance training. Blew my mind what was happening to me. I was 45 years old. I was, I stopped the actual training in the gym and said, okay, I'll do the test, and actually doubled my strength.
Okay, so this is the machine you got, an adapter
machine
resistance?
Now, yeah. So I was like, wow,
so
okay.
Logistically, what is it?
It's adaptive resistance. So it's basically a motor connected to computer software. The computer software tracks every movement that your muscle makes. So
it's like a rowing machine or something?
It's almost like a Bowflex connected to a motor that tracks your, your resistance and everything. So basically, if I go into the gym and I want to work my chest and I get on the bench press, I put on weight that I can do safely. 3 sets of 10. Guys, okay, first set, here's 10, rip out 8 to 10. All right, here's 8 to 10. Well, you got 140 pounds on the bar, 140 down, 140 up, 140 down, 140 up. Naturally, your body resistance can resist a lot more than 140, but in the gym, you're stuck at 140 because once you lower to here, scientifically, your muscles aren't as strong to push.
And you're prone to more injury.
Exactly, because the weight and the gravity. So on my machine, I know I can bench press 150 pounds, but I can bring down 210.
Okay.
Basically 210, 190, 180, your different strengths through the whole strength pool. So by the time you're done 4 reps, you've tore the muscle down.
Wow.
Go let it recover. You don't have to do 3 sets of 10 with what I find is it's a lot easier on the joints and tendons when you're getting back into working out. Sometimes our muscles say, hey, I can bench 150. Okay, but my shoulders and the joints and tendons really don't want to do 150. We need to start at 110, work our way up to 120, 130. So that's the physio part of my machine. That's why I can work with, older people or people with injuries. And that's why I can work with younger kids because I'm not using weight and I can teach them proper form and what muscles they're actually using. So it's a game changer. But
cool.
Like I said, the 2 years of lockdowns, everyone asks me, were you affected? And I always think, no, I wasn't really affected until this week. It's like, you know what? It crushed me. I had a great thing going at Energy Fitness. Then Jeff and Paul gave me a great opportunity at Niagara Health and Rehab. I thought I was doing great. And I was like, man, I'm stuck working out in my garage. I go, it did affect me. And so now I am April 1st, I have a new small sports medicine clinic that I'm moving into April 1st.
Cool.
Where there's, not a lot of staff. There's a couple people. So, if I go to the States and I come back, I can still work. There's, I just, in an environment at NHRC, they're very safe there. They follow all the mandates and everything. And it was, I was just scared that another lockdown or something was going to come up. Everybody has to follow the rules. And unfortunately, the restaurants and the strength coaches and stuff kind of took the grunt of it. So
cool.
That's kind of how it ended. So yeah, it really kind of screwed me over. I loved everything I had in NHRC. I loved everything I had at Energy Fitness. Now I'm thankful for Martina, who's given me an opportunity in this new Fastion Sports Clinic, where we're going to try it all over again and, build back better.
Oh shit! You had to
I'm a
fucking
Republican,
ruin everything.
Trust me. Yeah.
You know what? All this talk about Boston Bruins and Philadelphia Flyers. I get I'll call them cousins, the Bernicks. Danny Bernick, his kid, Danny the third. Those Mylar mats This kid can he could stick handle like lightning fast. I've never seen anything like it. And they're all like Danny Senior, Danny Junior, and young Danny. They're all Bruins fans, like die hard. They got the best rink out in Pelham in the winter and everything. Yeah. And this kid's an undersized kid, and he is an absolute stud. So maybe you can just say hi to Danny Berenick for me. Maybe one day you'll meet him.
Hey, Danny, what year was Danny Berenick born?
Danny Berenick's probably a 10 or 12. He's not like, I mean, he's.
So all right. So I have my partner, Chris Lukey, partner in business that we're going into business to have. It's called My Hockey Resume. So we want to expose all these kids to D1, D3. The U.S. has a great development route for kids that can play hockey till they're 25, 26 and make a career out of it. Here in Canada, I just found where it was a big rush to get to the NHL by 18, 19. In the States, they push for the education, they push for the diplomas, they push for...
And the development too.
Yeah, when you're 24, maybe now you're a man and you can compete at that NHL level where the Crosbys, the Shane Wrights, Scott Stevens, those guys were men at 18. Owen Nolan, local guy, went to high school. He was a man at 18. He could play with the men. Now, if little Timmy's not a man at 18, he can still get there. There's just another path. And that path, there is education involved. Like Chris Lukey always tells me, hockey ends, but you can take your diploma to the grave. So we try to get kind of an education. But I do have some special players, Federico and Smythe, they're gifted. They're in the OHL, lighten it up. They're on a different path because, they're men, right, at a younger age. So, so that's what. Yeah, I'm gonna look up Berenick. That's definitely. I'll be all over.
Good kid, man. Anyways, it's been a real surprising pleasure to have you on. Thanks to Josh Bigger, really, for the access, and then thanks for coming into my YouTube channel and saying what's up and busting balls a little bit with him. And you gotta love Lord Freedom. So it's kind of. It's kind of weird how it's strange how people come together. And you know what? I don't get. I say I broadcast for a living. I've been broadcasting for a long time. I haven't made $1 since YouTube canceled me. But and I even when I was doing the radio show, I was making no money. I was doing it because I loved it. So, but I often wonder. Like today, I got busy with business, and I thought, I actually considered today. I'm like, at some point, like I love doing this. But I'm never sure why, because I'm making no money and I'm trying to, build a new life down here. I'm chasing hotels and resorts and stuff like that with another buddy of mine and making some progress. I haven't banged anything together yet, but it's been a tough go. But, I was today, I'm like, at some point I'm going to be too busy to do this kind of stuff. So anyways, with that said, I appreciate your time. I really, I never know why I'm having these conversations, but somebody's going to get something out of this conversation. And one day I'm going to hear about it and they'll go, I remember you had Favell on that one day and it was awesome and it changed my life. So that's all I can hope for.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing. You're letting people talk and kind of tell their experiences. I'm not on here voicing, hey, I'm against this, against that. Hey, I read this, I read that. I just like to tell people what my experiences are through what I see, not what I read, not what people tell me. It's what I see. So,
all right, man.
Good for you. Keep it up, man.
All right, my brother. Much love. Give my best to the family and keep it up on the show there. I can't wait to go dive into some of that. And let me know when you get some. When you get the Keenans on the World, I'd love to watch that one, man. That'll be awesome.
Sure,
He's the hardest MFer on the planet, but. Great coach, man, and I loved him when he was a Flyers coach. I was still a big fan.
Yeah, awesome.
I even went through the Hitchcocks days, even though I wasn't a big Hitchcock fan. I'm like, I had a special nickname for that. Anyways, the links are in the bottom below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing it, and maybe you could just on the way out tell people how to contact you in case I missed a link down below.
Yeah, no problem. You can get a hold of me on my website. FavellFitness.com. My email is corey.favell@gmail.com. I'm pretty easy to find on social media. I don't hide. I'm right out there. I have Favell Fitness on, you got Facebook. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. I don't do the tickety talk or whatever. I don't know. But
Chinese spies anyways.
Yeah, I don't even know whatever that is. Whatever, TikTok. Anyway, thanks so much, Jim, for having me on.
You're welcome, brother. I appreciate it. All right, we'll talk soon.
Take care.
All right. Holy fuck. That did not suck. And now I'm late for Gavin McInnes. And I'm like a big fat well, I'm not fat anymore, but like I'm a big sweaty mess. I've been in the background, I've been drying my face up like this, you know, when it's full screen, and you can probably hear me wiping my drying my headset off because I down the volume that one time. Wow, that was an unexpectedly amazing conversation. Thank you, Mr. Favell. Wow, I was not expecting that, but I didn't know. We come out here and it's never scripted. I never know what I'm going to talk to these guys about, but you know, I know he had presented before a regional council, and tons of respect for doing that, and thanks Josh Bigger, Lord Freedom, dude. Without you, I wouldn't have hooked that up. And who we got on McInnes' show tonight? Who's this guy? He's doing interviews now?
I know we're getting to legal areas. He doesn't want his buildings inspected, which I presume shows that he wants to continue to be a slumlord and provide shitty housing.
I don't know who this guy
and
is.
then we find out, more disturbingly, that
Who's this guy?
Christian X's mother, they're all academics, by the way. Live in
Anyways,
this
it's live Gavin McInnes.
this incredibly high rate
I
of giving kids to
I've been missing it lately anyway.
which some say
I think I'm going to go down to George's for a rum and coke instead. I'm exhausted. It was a good interview. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace, love, hug your neighbor, whatever you do. Rip that mask off.
talk of kickbacks involved.
And
So really,
defy. Do not comply. I love you. I'm out.